So friends, it is 4 o'clock and I think we've been doing beautifully on getting started on time because people can always jump in late. But hello, nice to meet you all. I'm Meredith Jackson. For those of you who I don't know, I'm one of the pastors serving at Isaiah 58 Ministries in St. Louis. And I'm also on the planning team here. So I'm helping kind of to host this space today, and I hope you all are here for a conversation about General Synod. Woo! General Synod.
Woo-hoo.
Just a heads up that we are recording this session today, so that we can post it on YouTube and so others can join us after the fact to learn all of the top secrets of the General Synod of the UCC, because Damien's going to share with us all the secrets. So we nominated Damien to lead this session. I think mostly because you're leading the delegation, correct? Is that the conference delegation? So
yes, myself and Mary Nelson.
Awesome. So if you have any questions throughout this, as Damien is sharing, I think that as Damien and I talked, he would really love your questions. So you can wave your hand if you have a question, put it in the chat box, and we'll make sure it gets answered. But please, let's all throw in questions into the hat. And Damien, take it away.
Chat box is how you get it.
Well, I'm glad actually Ginny is here too, so that's good because Ginny is she's probably more of an expert at General Synod than I am. In all honesty, I'm making that assumption, Ginny. But General Synod is an amazing experience. Let me just say that. And if you have never been to a General Synod, I strongly, I go beyond strongly. I really encourage you to attend one. It's such an amazing experience, and it'll change your perspective on who the United Church of Christ is as a denomination, in my personal opinion, as well as professional opinion as a pastor. I would just say that so this year General Synod is gone virtual. We've all been made aware of that, and because it's gone virtual, we're not 100% sure how that format will look. We have about December, Ginny and myself were at another conference where we were in attendance that was put on by UCC, and they used a format that was really user friendly and different than Zoom, but has some similarities to it. Basically, it was an application that we downloaded, and then you could go ahead and access different things that you wanted to attend. So similar to what we've been doing this week, you'd get a schedule, you could look at the different events, and then you could decide which ones you wanted to attend. You put them on your schedule, and then it sends you alerts and tells you, tells you when that is coming up so you don't miss it. So there's lots of great things that they did. And so I'm making the assumption, not necessarily our conference, but I'm making the assumption they're probably going to use that app again as a way to do General Synod this year. So thought I would, just a reminder, so General Synod is in July. It's the 11th through the 18th. So it's a full experience, just like our conference annual gathering is this week. And that's 80 days away, 15 hours, 55 minutes, and 46 seconds from now. And the timer keeps going down. So we're getting really, really close. And of course, this year's theme is Rooted in Love. So it's a good year, and it's a great opportunity for us to gather together. So it does kick off on the 11th. There's some different events, and I thought I would just kind of go over some of the details with you, so you know a little bit about what to expect. Because it is virtual, the ability to register for General Synod begins on May 1st. So just a few short days, I guess, not quite a week, maybe just over a week away. You can register for General Synod, which is great news. That you can get in on that as soon as you want. The registration fees are for $100 for visitors and young adults, Youth are $150 and delegates are $175. So there's lots of, so those are the registration fees and the ways for you to sign up online to go and attend. So July 11th, as I mentioned, that is the first day, and there'll be youth and young adult welcome from 3:30 until 5. Opening worship will occur at 5 o'clock that evening. If you've never been, once again, if you've never been to General Synod, one of the things that they do is they try to create different types of worship. They have different guests that are preaching. They have different formats. It's really, it's a really cool experience, I think, because all of the different energy that comes from all the different people that have put together services and worked to make General Synod what it is really great. Some of my favorite things are always to see they've constantly gotten better using technology. And one of the things that I love is when they've been doing in-person stuff, they put these big giant screens up behind all of the speakers and everything, and they can change that background. And so they can make it look like it's the ocean and the waves, or it can be a mountain view or a forest view. So it's really kind of neat. So it'll be interesting to see how they use that, the virtual backgrounds this year. So opening worship will be exciting, as it always is. And that'll be happening on July 11th at 5 o'clock. And then after that, they begin right away going into the plenary sessions, which start at 6:30 that evening. The next day is the 12th, and we kick into young adult programming at 2. Then they have a youth and young adult small gatherings that are going on, and then youth and young adult programming that's offered. So they're really trying to remind us that our youth are the church. They're the future of the church. They are the church for us. And so we tend to focus a lot of programming and opportunities for our youth so that they can be there and be with us at General Synod. And it's always a great time. I love seeing the youth there. They always bring, again, lots of energy. They have a lot of things to share with us, and wisdom and insight as to what things they'd like to see happening in the United Church of Christ as a denomination. So that's always great. There'll be some sponsored events also happening on the 12th, beginning at 5:30 and going through until 7:30. And then there'll be, at 7:30, there'll be a greeting and announcement section, along with following that with a keynote speaker. And then they're going to do some social gatherings this year. And again, it'll be interesting to see how exactly they do those social gatherings, what that looks like, and how they create that space so that folks can gather. Because one of the best things about General Synod is seeing all of the people that you know. And for a lot of pastors and clergy, we travel from one conference to another, or we spend time in different parts, or we know somebody from seminary that we graduated at. And so when we come to General Synod, it's always a great chance for us to connect with one another. That's one of the great things about General Synod. And if you have been a delegate before, and you've gotten to know other delegates, or you've attended a General Synod several times, you might have connected with different people from different places all over the country. And so that's a great opportunity, once again, to kind of reconnect with each other, which is always fun. And it's always a good time. July 13th, the next day, again, more of young adult gatherings and opportunities that will happen beginning at 2 o'clock and going on through the day. There will also be more sponsored events in the evening, starting at 5:30, and then and more announcements and some other optional events that'll be happening on the 13th. So these first few days are really good. There's a lot of just kind of interacting with one another and spending time getting to reconnect with people, a lot of youth activities. On the 14th, there will be some more sponsored events in the evening, followed by a worship service at 8 o'clock. Typically, there's a worship service opportunity every day at General Synod. And so those are, again, always a great opportunity to see different ways to do worship, see different styles and formats, listen to different preachers, and there's some amazing sermons, and in all honesty, that come through General Synod. And of course, all of this stuff gets recorded so that they can share it later on. And you can often go back to the ucc.org website and you can find out more information or watch previous General Synods postings and things about that. July 15th, again, more.
Hey, Damien, can I just offer
Yes.
one quick, the worship
Please.
service for July 14th, I want to give a huge plug and shout out to Reverend Michelle Higgins, who will be the preacher for the General Synod worship service, one of 3. And she is the pastor and teacher of St. John's Beloved Community in St. Louis. So, woohoo!
Yay.
Missouri Mid-South Conference is going to be represented in very high regard from that capacity. So.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jenny. I had forgotten about that for a brief moment, so thank you. Yeah, so that's that 14th. So again, back to the 15th, some more young adult and youth gatherings, small groups and programmings. They're also going to have a game night for youth and young adults from 6:30 to 8:30 on the 15th. So that's something different. I'm not familiar with them doing that before, so this will be an exciting opportunity for them to do something different than that they've done in the past. There'll also be other pieces. There's some celebration that's going to be happening at 8 o'clock on the 15th, along with sponsors. Now, typically, when we talk about a sponsored event, it's sponsors of General Synod. So it could be the pension board, it could be Ernst & Young, it could be Chisholm, it could be any of the agencies that step up and they want to sponsor. Typically, it's food and drinks and live music, and sometimes there's dancing, and they really go all out to kind of celebrate General Synod and to celebrate our pastors and our churches that are coming together to do this work every other year. So those are great sponsored events, and they're always a lot of fun. And again, you get to hang out with people and meet new people, which is, again, a whole nother aspect of General Synod, is to meet new people. So to be brave if you can and go out and hang out in those spaces and hope to connect with people that maybe you haven't met before. July 16th, more in the beginning, in the earlier afternoon, of young adult gatherings and workshops. There'll be also some educational intensives. Educational intensives are always really great. These are an opportunity for you to do some learning while you're at General Synod about different things that may be happening. And so it's conversations that are led by professionals to share with you some kind of insight. It could be an insight as far as like a ministry like type of a workshop. They're usually condensed into about an hour format. So similar to what we've been trying to do through our conference annual gathering this year, just a way for folks to kind of take some time away and do some learning while they're at General Synod. Then we go into some of the committees. Committees in session start at 2 and go till 3:30. And then there's more adult programming, followed by plenary session number 2. And so those go on. And then we have greetings and announcements, and followed up by another keynote speaker that evening at 8 o'clock. So the plenary sessions are where we talk about the resolutions that are coming to General Synod and review those, and those get brought before committees to discuss those, and then any suggested changes before those would go to the floor for voting is what happens in those sessions. The 17th, we have our committees in session in the afternoon from 1 until 2:30. Then we move into the hearings, and those go from 3 until 4. And then we have another plenary session, number 3. And then we get into the speak outs. And those are an opportunity for about a half an hour for folks to come up to a microphone, usually share some information, shout outs about information that they want to share with all of those folks who have gathered for General Synod. It could be speak out in regarding to a project that's being worked on that they're looking to just share with folks. Could be any number of things, quite honestly, that they do the speak outs on. There's often a lot of passion brought out in the speak outs because people put a lot of work into a brief. What do we give them? Two or 5 minutes, I think is kind of typical for a speak out. So it's a quick little thing, but there's lots of folks that want to share. Then in the evening that night, there's more committees in session as needed, and then followed by youth and young adult closing events on the 17th. Finally, we get to the 18th, the last day for General Synod. Start at 1 o'clock with plenary session number 4. And then there's pretty extensive breaks from 4:30 until about 6. So they kind of wrap up the business, and then we conclude from 6 until 8 with a beautiful worship service to close us out in our time together. So there's just so many things kind of going on throughout the week, and obviously, if we were in person, General Synod is often has also vendor space. So there's places where you can buy, different things. You can buy liturgical garments. You can buy robes. You can buy stoles. You can buy artwork, handcrafted items are often there and available. And there's also a slew of seminaries there willing and ready to talk to anybody that's interested in thinking about going into ministry. So again, this year, because it's all virtual, we will see what that will look like. We'll see how that's going to kind of be set up and what are those opportunities going to look like. So more of that information keeps coming out every week from General Synod, the General Synod Committee for the UCC. Yes, so questions. So I'll pause for a minute. Does anybody have questions about some of the scheduling stuff I went over? I know I went kind of quickly. You can find all of this information on the UCC website. It is generalsynod.org, which is the extension of the UCC site. Or you can go to ucc.org, and then you'll find the General Synod information is also there under one of the tabs.
Damien, I have a question.
Sure.
When I was looking at the schedule quite a bit earlier, and now you just reiterated, it sounds to me like there's only one opportunity for us to do any sort of enrichment or learning type thing. Is that true? Is that typical? So I'm assuming that they're going to have a variety of workshops that are going to be open, and we'll just have one opportunity to choose one of them. Is that right?
I think that there are other options throughout the week that it kind of is going to function similar to what we're doing here at CAG.
Okay.
In terms of there will be some other options.
Okay.
And my understanding is that when you register, you are privy to all of the workshops. They will all be recorded. So even if you aren't able to go to another workshop, that's been the challenge of the in-person General Synod, is you have to decide and you have to take fastidious notes in order to capture that particular workshop. This time, the generosity, and I hope this continues post-pandemic, is that they are recording those, and you will have access to all of the workshops after after General Synod. So that's something new and very exciting to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, and it looks like Betsy, there'll be about 50 different workshops is what they've been working on and putting together. Reverend Chris Davies has been in charge of working with a team to get some of those things together. So it's bound to be a lot of really good,
Yeah, that's
good workshops and great
amazing.
information. Yeah.
Damien?
Uh-huh.
I know the delegates, our delegates have been listed. Will they be listed again? Because I can't even remember who our delegates are. So
You have listed.
will it be listed, I guess, later on the Courier and such as that?
I'm going to let Ginny
yes.
field that question.
Yes, it will be listed. Those delegates, we were trying to get through CAG so that people didn't somehow confuse CAG with General Synod. But we will be sharing that information of who the delegates are, just for all of us who are UCC church nerds. You're aware that the conference is allocated a number of delegates, and that's related to how many members of our churches from the previous year. And so our number of delegates for I think almost the entire time that I've been conference minister has been 21 delegates. And that's the case here this year. And Ashley, you are asking, are there any scholarships or discounts available for MIDS? I know that the price is reduced, I think, but I'm not quite sure. Talk to me and we will check in terms of scholarships, because I certainly want to make sure that our members in discernment have the opportunity. This is a phenomenal opportunity to learn about the beauty and the underbelly of the United Church of Christ. Damien, if I can tag on to that, sure. There's one piece that I really want to celebrate, and I've been having to sit on my hands and bite my tongue because it needed to be announced. And I just looked on the website and it's announced. So I want to celebrate, and you're hearing it for the first time publicly. The Missouri Mid-South Conference is well represented in the future leadership and in the slate for upcoming leaders in the United Church of Christ. The first one that I want to celebrate is that the assistant moderator of the General Synod, not for right now, but for the upcoming, this person will be voted on, is the Reverend Rashawn Sinandre from the Oasis United Church of Christ in Jeff City. Woo-hoo! That is huge. That's the person that you see at General Synod and you either go, that person is doing an awesome job, they know Robert's rules, they know how to handle the chaos, or you say, what in the world is that person thinking? And we are going to send the happy, peaceful vibes to Rashawn when it is his turn to be standing in front of us in General Synod. So that's one celebration. The next celebration is that we have two members of the Missouri Mid-South Conference who are on the slate for the United Church of Christ Board of Directors. One is here in our midst. That is Joyce Bathke. She is on the nominating slate. Yes, Norma. Woo-hoo! You know, Joyce is one of those folks that I just assumed she has always been on the UCC board, and she is a wonderful leader in the United Church of Christ and has served in other capacities, and so she will be representing us. The other person is from the Western Association, the Reverend Bethany Rural, RUHL. She is one of our ministers in her maybe 30s or late 20s. She is a member of Southwood UCC in Raytown. She's a chaplain with young people, and forgive me, I don't have the name of the organization. It's connected with St. Luke's in Kansas City. So that is very exciting, that we will be strongly represented in the UCC board. The other piece that I just want to name is that this is the year that we were supposed to be the co-hosts for General Synod pre-pandemic. And if the pandemic had not happened, we would all be running around trying to get lots of things prepared for General Synod in Kansas City. What I want to share with you is the conversation from the national setting has been that 2023, they had already signed the contract with Indianapolis and the Indiana-Kentucky Conference. And so in 2023, it will be, I think, in Indianapolis. And then in 2025, they returned to conversations with Kansas City in terms of contracts that they could honor. And so tentatively, there is the possibility that we in the Missouri Mid-South Conference and the Kansas-Oklahoma Conference would co-host General Synod in 2025, which sounds like a long time away, but as you know, General Synods come quickly and there is a lot of work to do. So I just wanted to share that. Oh, and one last honor is Hannah Rice from the St. Louis Association is now on the General Synod Credentials Committee, which is the committee that makes sure that all of the conference's delegates have the correct balance of equity and representation. So please celebrate with Hannah. This is a great celebration for all of our leaders and for the Missouri Mid-South Conference. Thanks.
Yeah. Woo-woo.
Yes, we need one of those big Ginny woohoos from everybody. I think we're doing we do. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thanks, Ginny, for sharing some of that additional information with us. It is indeed a great celebration. So the other thing I thought I would share with you this afternoon is a bit about the business or the resolutions that are getting proposed that are coming before General Synod this year. So I'm just going to go over just the kind of the title of those a little bit. And I know there was also a chat question in the chat box, and I will come back to that. But so the resolutions are as follows. So the first resolution coming to the floor is for the Alliance of Associate Conference Ministers of the United Church of Christ, a request to be recognized as a formal group. So that is one of the resolutions. Again, all of these resolutions can be found on the UCC website underneath the General Synod portion, and they will be listed under the heading of business. So those are all there, and you can read the full resolutions for each one. And so for our delegates that are going to be going, I know that was the question, is that we will be assigning you to look at one of the resolutions, and then we will be talking about them at our next delegate training, which is coming up on May 22nd. And so I'll be sending out a reminder about that gathering, and also I'll just randomly assign you a resolution to do some research, do your homework, and then we'll get together and we'll talk about each of those resolutions. The formal resolution or the group you'll be a part of will be assigned at a later time. Then another resolution is the resolution to advocate and act to change the cash bail bond system to eliminate racial and social injustices inherent in the present system. So that is coming from the Southern Conference, who submitted that resolution. Another resolution is to ban the practice of conversion therapy. And this comes to us from the O&A Coalition and the Mental Health Network. Another resolution, a commitment to gender safety and equity in ministry settings. And that has been submitted by the Central Pacific Conference. And then a resolution encouraging to end the 128 years of war between the United States of America and the Hawaiian Kingdom. And that is coming, of course, from the Hawaii Conference.
Huh.
Then the resolution for declaration for a just peace between Palestine and Israel. And that one is coming from a long list. It's coming from Shalom United Church of Christ, New Haven, Connecticut, with the concurrence of First Church United Church of Christ in Guilford, Connecticut, First Congregational Church, UCC, of Old Lyme in Connecticut. These are all, and then Meridian Congregational Church, UCC in Meridian, New Hampshire, Union Congregational Church, UCC in Angels Camp, California, and Pilgrim United Church of Christ in Carlsbad, California. So that one's that's got quite a few people behind that. Another resolution is for who will speak for the trees, a resolution on the rights of nature, and this comes from the New Hampshire Conference. Another resolution is becoming a church of contemplatives in action. And so this has a number of churches as well that is behind this resolution. The Agape Spiritual Community in Waltham, Massachusetts, Canaan Congregational Church in Canaan, Mass, First Church of Williamstown in Williamstown, Mass, Sheffield United Church of Christ in Old Parish Church of Sheffield, Mass, Park Congregational United Church of Christ in Toledo, Ohio, Emmanuel United Church of Christ of Cantonsville, Maryland, the First Congregational Church of Glen Ellen, Illinois, Southern Congregational Church of Pittsfield, Mass, Christ Church United in Lowell, Mass, First Church Cambridge in Cambridge, Mass, Keene Valley Congregational Church in Keene, New York, and First Church Pittsfield, UCC, Mass, and Virgin's Congregational Church in Virgins, Vermont. So quite a few people supporting that resolution. Another resolution to declare and respond to racism as a public health crisis. And this is coming from the Council for Health and Human Services Ministries, which is CHISM, and the Council on Racial and Ethnic Ministries. Resolution to recognize the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent of 2015 to 2024. And this is submitted by the New Hampshire Conference of the United Church of Christ and the Southwest Conference of the United Church of Christ. A resolution on protecting workers at churches and other religious institutions. This comes from the Central Atlantic Conference of the United Church of Christ and the New Jersey Association of that Central Atlantic Conference. So those are the resolutions that are coming before General Synod group, before General Synod this year, and those will be talked about in those different in the different sessions and the gatherings. And as I mentioned before, our delegates that have been assigned to go, we will be reviewing these resolutions, talking about them, asking questions, and going through that process of figuring out what we're voting on, what we get to know. Questions? Yes, Meredith.
So I just want to say that all these resolutions are super exciting, and I hope that you can find the excitement in any of them, because one year I was assigned to the space junk committee, but let's be honest, space junk turned out to be really fascinating. So embrace the resolutions. There's something to learn from all of them. They've already gone through and decided which ones will be going to committee and which ones will go right to the floor of plenary. But I encourage you to read them all. And if you want to speed read, there's a summary at the top, and then you want to read the therefores at the bottom, which is implementation. So like go for those two, but everyone, even like I'm fascinated. I'm going to go read that Who Speaks for the Trees one, because it sounds a little different, which means it's probably going to be real exciting.
That's right. and they definitely bring some excitement in different ways. Different groups when get assigned to the resolution, and you'll find people that come in, and often what I've witnessed is we jam pack these rooms to be talking about the resolution, and we just jam pack them with people, and there's all kinds of energy around that. So I think it's exciting, and I'm not really a polity nerd, so I still think it's kind of exciting when people are really get worked up and want to talk about some of these great things.
You may have the question of how is this going to work in terms of virtual, the business meeting part. If you have attended as a visitor or delegate the in-person General Synod, or if you just love Robert's Rules, you know that there are certain microphones, and we usually in person have the youth delegates holding up the green microphone and all of that. What I understand is that we are using the same system that our Presbyterian siblings used for their General Assembly last, I think, spring or summer. And so if it is decent and in order for our Presbyterian siblings, then it will be for all of us UCC folks. That's the laughter, but the reality is what they say is that this system has within its platform the ability to accommodate those microphones and being able to speak from the different perspectives of a certain pro or con of a resolution. So
good, that's good to know. Yeah, that's often the thing that you watch at General Synod on the floor, the line growing longer and longer behind the one microphone or the other. So yeah.
And I would assume that this year they're still going to have the floor parliamentarian, right? They're still going to have, so like if you have a question about how the Robert's Rules is breaking down, because I assume it's going to be kind of extra complicated since delegates won't all be at the table and able to say, hey, why is this happening? Or, hey, I want to propose an amendment. There's always a parliamentarian dedicated to the delegates. And so if I'm sure they'll have some way for you to ask that person. And if I like to go with, hey, this is my end goal, I want to get to here, tell me how to do it and how to navigate the microphones to get there. And they are super helpful. So use them.
Yeah, good point. Thanks, Meredith.
With this being a virtual event, are the delegates going to be in one location, or will they all be in their homes and participating from there?
Go ahead, Jenny.
Weird question, I know, but I just don't know.
No, for most of the conferences, what I've heard is that the delegates will be in their own homes for the continued safety and health of all involved as we continue to live through the pandemic. So everybody will be in their homes. There will not be the travel. There will not be the cost of the travel. In usual in-person General Synod years, the budget line item for General Synod delegates is $30,000, and that is that's to cover, and that's a stipend. It covers registration, travel, hotels, and a stipend for meals. We were able to reduce that down to, I think, about $7,500 for this year, because we don't have the travel and we don't have the cost from that perspective. For those who are delegates, one other change is that if you've been a delegate in the past, you know that the day starts pre-sunrise, usually about 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and it doesn't end until maybe 10:30 at night, and that repeats every day, and you just have to eat your Wheaties and be selective at night of what you are and aren't going to do. And this year it's not going to be as intensive from that perspective, because we're geographically everywhere. we're starting Central Time at 1 p.m. in order to accommodate for our Pacific Coast and Pacific Island folks, siblings in the Hawaii conference. That will be early in the morning. So for the Missouri Mid-South Conference delegates, there may be a caucus, but it won't be at 6:30 in the morning from that perspective. What I shared with the delegates when we did our first orientation is that's really good. And there's a temptation to continue working and be a delegate while you're picking up the kids and you're making supper. And that may be the challenge of being a delegate, is carving out that space and that time so that you are fully representing the Missouri Mid-South Conference, and you're not juggling work and worship and kids and everything else. And that, I think, is going to be one of the challenges of doing it virtual.
Boy, yeah.
Yeah, well, when I went, the 2 times I went, it was the traditional way. And so I didn't know just what they were going to do with it being, as I assumed, going virtual. And I was curious.
I didn't know. I don't know who she is.
Karen Miller.
Can I offer one other suggestion? Is often what the delegates are responsible for to the Missouri Mid-South Conference is preparation, and then the attendance, and then the reporting and offering testimonies to our local churches after General Synod. And my observation is that we forget the last part, both the local churches and the delegates. And we get back home from General Synod and we put that on a shelf as been there, done that. I encourage you, if you are a local church, to invite a delegate to your congregation to share their experience, and to share about the resolutions, because the beauty of the United Church of Christ is that each church, once General Synod happens and the resolutions are voted on, then the responsibility is that the church, the local church, is supposed to take all of those resolutions and say to itself, does our local church agree with this resolution? And do that for all of them because of our polity of autonomy and that piece of it in covenant. We don't normally do that. And so I invite the delegates and the local churches to really lean into that, because as Meredith said, there are some really interesting and sometimes controversial resolutions that I think would be beneficial for the local churches to hear from our delegates of that experience and what those resolutions mean.
Jenny, could I interject also? Even before General Synod, I have gone to different churches when a church will call, hey, you're a delegate, would you come and talk to me about this resolution? And you vote for it. When you're there, you're voting your conscience. You're not voting by what my church feels, but you're voting your conscience. But it still was beneficial for, me to hear what they were saying. And I think that's a good thing. If somebody invites you, come and speak to them and let them know about the resolution, because you'll have much more knowledge about them than the other folks.
That's a good point, Joyce. Thank you for that. I think it's also good to point out that if you are a clergy person in the Missouri Mid-South Conference, this is your opportunity to also educate yourself on these resolutions, get to know what they are. Even if you don't get to attend all of the General Synod sessions, but to then do a follow-up and figure out what's happened and then share it within your communities. We look to you as the clergy to also share, the knowledge of what's happening at General Synod with your churches, and so that folks know in the local church that this happens every other year. It's important to talk about General Synod in our churches, and it's important to talk about it with our youth. There's lots of youth opportunities this year virtually, and I know that we have a lot of youth that can potentially be involved and be interested. So hopefully we'll get to see some of that activity and from our youth and involvement in General Synod this year.
Most important question, Damien. What about the cookies? What about the cookies? How are we going to get cookies? Are we going to bake cookies at home? Is there a conference-wide recipe? Like, talk to me about cookies.
Oh, I love the idea of the cookies, and Ginny and I were talking about cookies actually, because I said to her, I said, we're going to be missing out on the cookies. And
we missed out on them in Milwaukee.
Yeah,
they cut them from Milwaukee.
I know, and we shouldn't just accept this anymore. We need to fight for the cookie. So for those of you who may not know about the Great Cookie, I don't know, I think it was like 10, 12 years ago or something, the host conference decided to make so many cookies, and they made like an obscene amount of cookies. And so we sit on our butts all day in business meetings and gorge ourselves on cookies and then wonder why our health isn't awesome. But it's become a thing because convention centers don't want us to bring in cookies, but we've like written it into contracts that we get to bring in cookies. So I'm going to be at home and I still want some cookies.
All right. Well, we will work on that. We'll try to figure out how that'll play out. Maybe if everybody wants to submit their favorite cookie recipe or something like that, we could come up with a way to exchange that information between churches and in the conference. That would be fun. That would be fun. Yeah. Cookies are kind of an interesting thing. So I was in Grand Rapids, Michigan when we hosted General Synod, and it was an amazing event. And I was exposed to the cookie gorging, as I would like to say, tables and tables of cookies everywhere, and it was just like people just go from one thing to the next, and they just grab a cookie, or they grab 3 cookies, or they grab 12. They grab whatever they want and they run to the next meeting. So cookies are the way to sustain yourself with the sugar rush, I think is the theory behind that. So yeah, so we'll have to come up with that.
Damien, I'm sorry, who's the keynote speaker?
Let me see if I have that. Jenny might have that quicker than I do.
I don't recall. Actually, yeah. Damien, you can probably pick it up quicker than. I think there's 2 people, but I invite
Valerie Carr one of them.
I think you're right.
Because I'm like
That sounds
super
familiar.
excited about that.
Yeah, you've read her book? I have it sitting at the head of my bed. Yep, that.
And Adam Russell Taylor, an American Baptist who's he's the head of Sojourners.
Oh, okay. All right.
There you go. Yep.
That makes sense. Thank you.
The wealth of the internet is at our fingertips. I'm thankful for those who are quicker to find information than I am sometimes.
And to think you won't have to be in a convention hall fighting for Wi-Fi this year. There you go.
There you go. Other questions from folks about General Synod? Not that we have all the answers, but we learn more all the time. They continue to give us updates about what's happening and what's going on. And so we try to keep aware of that. And I do know, I will say this, I don't know if they're going to use it this year, but I know in the past they've also done, they also used an app for General Synod. And I'm not sure if they're going to do that again, where you could watch some of the stuff just live stream, and I would assume that there would be some capability or ability to do that. I would think so, to watch at least after, like some of the sermons and worship services that are so great.
One other person from the Missouri Mid-South Conference, Cliff Airy, is one of the creators of the worship services, who's behind the scenes. He's a member of First Congregational UCC in Webster Groves, and is a veteran of the worship services of General Synod. We don't see him very often, but he has been involved in many of those. And so I know from the planning committee meetings that he is very involved in that capacity of the worship services.
Great. MMS in the house. That's what we got to say. Great.
I would ask, what are your favorite parts of General Synod? All of you offer such a extensive experience of General Synod. Well, what are your favorite parts of in person, and maybe your musings of what's going to happen in a new way virtually?
I always love the keynote speakers. It's just thrilling to hear their words.
I agree. We had I think the unique experience of being at the General Synod in Hartford, Connecticut, when UCC celebrated 50 years of being a new denomination. And at that one, we had Barack Obama, and we had Marian Wright Edelman, two exciting, dynamic people, as we all know. And I think you might be aware that Starsky Wilson, now of our own conference, is the head of Marian Wright Edelman's group of the Children's Defense Fund. And we celebrate that. But that, and Walter Brigham was at that General Synod too. So I'm speaking of history here.
Right.
It was just so exciting to be there.
And I love the worshiping with several thousand people. It is just amazing. You know, it just, since I'm a member of a small church, and so we don't hear that music like you hear when you get all these folks there worshiping together. So I think that's great.
Yes, yes.
One thing I really enjoyed a lot were the groupings you're assigned to. The one year, one of the groups I was assigned to was on adoptions for people of same-sex marriages. And I thought that was an awesome situation to be with.
Yeah.
That was my first General Synod was in 2005, and standing in the Atlanta Convention Center. And I was a visitor, and so I was standing behind the bar of the house and watching all of those neon green voting placards get raised in affirmation of marriage equality was a moment of, we can do really powerful things, and we can really do God's work in this world. And it's the one thing I always wanted to raise my electronic voting clicker, right? Because there was this visual moment of, here we are standing together, and it was spectacular. Anything else we want to share? Well, thank you all for being here and for coming to this session. We have more CAG events coming. Today we have one more event at 6 o'clock. There's going to be a pets and ministry workshop. We're going to be hearing about both support animals and meeting Hank the dog. And then at the end, there's going to be a pet blessing. So if you want to bring your pet onto the screen, that's great, or get down on the floor with your animal. You can also bring a photo of your animal, but there will be a pet blessing. So that's tonight at 6. Tomorrow, there are more sessions, including we can hear from our missionary who's been serving in Mexico, Elena Huego. Is that how we say our last name? She's going to be joining us in the morning or at noon. Oh, you get to sleep in tomorrow at noon. And then there's yoga and prayer space. You can start your evening with a little bit of wine and wonder with Jenny, which will be awesome. And after you have your wine, then just come on back for the bylaws conversation, because you'll have so many more questions after a glass or 2 of wine or whatever else you choose to imbibe in. Come and ask questions about our new bylaws. And then Friday is meant as an opportunity for kind of affinity groups to gather. There's a list of groups that are gathering. I'm including members in discernment, interim ministers, 2030 clergy, clergy of color, and children's ministers, and licensed pastors. So those are throughout the day on Friday. And then Saturday is our business meeting. So please make sure you have delegates from your church registered. It is a different Zoom link. So the Zoom link you're using now is good through the end of Friday. Saturday is a different Zoom link because we got to make sure we have quorum and whatnot. So make sure you're registered for Saturday. We will do the business meeting, and then we will have closing worship where we'll also have a service of release for Jenny. So that's an important moment to hold. So please plan on joining us for all of that. It will be fantastic. So thank you for being here. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, get them to log on with you distantly tomorrow. All are welcome in this space. So thanks for joining us today, y'all.